Ever since the first settlement of Jamestown in 1607 Virginia, America has been both a country of immigrants and native peoples. We need to remember that, not only on how we treat new immigrants, but also the historical injustices done to Native Americans since before the first colonies were even settled. If we can't recognize the sins of our forefathers against Native Americans and atone and seek reconciliation for those sins, do we even deserve a country in the first place? This juxtaposition is exemplified in the debate between Thanksgiving and the National Day of Mourning. We'll discuss in this video both holidays, what they represent, and why, as a people, Americans like you and me need to understand the true history of the holiday. The myths and truths of American Thanksgiving, unveiling cultural icons and recognizing the National Day of Mourning. Today we're going to be discussing Thanksgiving and the National Day of Mourning, and why the fourth Thursday in November is inexorably linked with both. Thanksgiving, a cherished holiday in the United States, is marked with feasts, family gatherings, and expressions of gratitude. However, beneath the surface of the seemingly innocuous celebration lie myths and truths that shape the cultural narrative of the nation. The holiday, often associated with the early Pilgrims and Native Americans sharing a bountiful feast, has become a symbol of unity and thankfulness. However, the reality is more complex, involving the whitewashing of Native American history and the painful legacy of colonization. The traditional narrative of Thanksgiving centers around the Pilgrims, a group of religious dissenters and separatists who wanted to leave the Anglican Church in England, not just reform it. They arrived on the Mayflower in 1620, and the Wampanoag tribe helped them to survive the harsh New England winter. The iconic image of Pilgrims and Native Americans sharing a peaceful feast masked the complexities of the historical relationship between European settlers and Native communities. The myth perpetuates the idea of a harmonious existence, overshadowing the subsequent colonization, displacement, and violence that Native Americans endured. The settlers and Native Americans had different worldviews, and the subsequent years saw significant tensions, conflicts, and eventual dispossession of native lands. The first Thanksgiving is often marked as 1621. The year after the landing, when Pilgrims and Wampanoags supposedly shared a feast to celebrate the successful harvest. While there were communal gatherings and harvest festivals, the specific 1621 event is not well documented. The details of the first Thanksgiving are a blend of historical facts and cultural embellishments. The common belief is that the turkey was the main dish during the first Thanksgiving feast. While wild turkey may have been part of the menu, historical accounts suggest that the first feast included a variety of foods such as venison, waterfowl, seafood, corn, and other vegetables, many of which were brought by the Native Americans to the Pilgrims. The Pilgrims are often depicted wearing black and white clothing with buckled hats. The popular image of Pilgrims in black and white attire is more a product of artistic interpretation than historical accuracy. Pilgrims dress in a variety of colors, and the buckled hat is not a consistent historical detail. The first Thanksgiving is often portrayed as a solemn religious observance. While the Pilgrims were religious, historical accounts suggest that the first Thanksgiving was more of a secular feast, involving both Pilgrims and Native Americans sharing food and entertainment. The story goes that the Pilgrims landed on a rock at Plymouth in 1620, but there is no historical evidence to suggest that's where they landed. The Plymouth Rock story has likely emerged later as a symbol of the Pilgrims' arrival, and part of the Pilgrim and Puritan work ethic myths that survive to this day. How Thanksgiving became a national holiday. Thanksgiving became a national holiday in the United States through the persistent efforts of Sarah Josepha Hale, a prominent American writer and editor. Hale, known for her campaign to promote Thanksgiving as a national holiday, wrote editorials and letters to influential politicians for nearly 40 years. She believed that a national day of Thanksgiving could help unify the nation in the midst of its sectional tensions and promote a sense of national identity. Hale's advocacy caught the attention of President Abraham Lincoln during a critical period in the American history, the Civil War. In 1863, Lincoln issued a proclamation declaring Thanksgiving a national holiday. The proclamation set the date for the final Thursday in November and continued to be observed to the present day. Lincoln's Thanksgiving proclamation aimed to foster a sense of unity and gratitude during a tumultuous time in the nation's history. The holiday was initially intended to be a day of thanks for blessings of the year and an opportunity for Americans to reflect on their shared values. While individual states had observed Thanksgiving in various forms before Lincoln's proclamation, primarily in New England, it was a declaration that solidified the holiday's national status. Over time, Thanksgiving had evolved into a widely celebrated occasion marked by feasts, parades, and expressions of gratitude firmly ingrained in the cultural fabric of the United States. The real story of the colonization of America. Before the Pilgrims landed in 1620 in the area that would later be known as Plymouth, Massachusetts, was originally known as Patuxet by the indigenous peoples. Patuxet was a wampanoag village that had been abandoned, likely due to devastating plague introduced by the European fishermen in the early 1600s, which greatly reduced the native population. When the Pilgrims arrived, they established their settlement on the remains of the deserted Patuxet village and named it Plymouth, after the city of which they departed England from. Pilgrims were hungry and sick when they landed, and initially had contact with the Wampanoag tribe, particularly the leader Massasoit. The contact led to the famous event known as the First Thanksgiving in 1621, where Pilgrims and Wampanoags supposedly shared a harvest feast. In the early years, there were instances of cooperation and trade with the Pilgrims and Native American tribes, as the settlers relied on the knowledge and support of the indigenous tribes to survive in their new environment. Over time, as more English settlers arrived in the New England region, competition for resources increased, leading to tensions with the Native American tribes. The influx of Puritans in the 1630s further strained relationships as the Puritans sought to establish a city upon a hill, or religiously driven community, and often viewed the indigenous people through a lens of cultural and religious superiority. As English settlers expanded, Native Americans found their lands being encroached upon, leading to disputes and conflicts. King Philip's War, which began in 1675, was a devastating conflict between English colonists and several Native American tribes, led by a Wampanoag named Metacomet, also known as King Philip. The war was sparked by a variety of grievances, including conflicts, land encroachments, cultural clashes, and the impact of diseases on native populations. This war resulted in significant loss of life on both sides, but primarily to Native Americans. Many Native American villages were attacked and decimated, and Metacomet was eventually killed, marking the end of the conflict. King Philip's War had a profound impact on Native American populations, leading to further loss of land, rights, and autonomy, and death. And this blueprint was taken from New England and Jamestown before it to the rest of what eventually became the United States. The war solidified English dominance in the region, and it contributed to the deepening divide between Native Americans and European settlers, setting the stage for further conflicts and eventual dispossession of indigenous lands, up to and including the 20th century. One of the prevalent myths surrounding Thanksgiving is this whitewashing of Native American history. The narrative of Thanksgiving often ignores the devastating impact of European diseases, forced assimilation, murder, death, and the dispossession of native lands. By romanticizing the relationship between Pilgrims and Native Americans, this dark chapter of history is conveniently omitted. The distortion perpetuates a misleading narrative that downplays the struggles and injustices faced by Native American communities. The National Day of Mourning. While many Americans celebrate with joy and gratitude for Thanksgiving, for Native Americans, this day holds a different significance. The National Day of Mourning emerged in the 1970s as a protest against the myths surrounding Thanksgiving. Native Americans and their allies gather at Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts, to honor their ancestors and raise awareness about the historical injustices perpetuated against their communities. Instead of a day of celebration, it is a solemn occasion to acknowledge the pain and loss endured by Native Americans throughout history. The National Day of Mourning was initiated by a Wampanoag leader named Wamsuta Frank James in 1970, after he was invited to speak at a Thanksgiving event in Plymouth, but was censored when his speech addressed the harsh realities of Native American history. In response, Native activists, including Mr. James, organized the National Day of Mourning as an alternative observance, focusing on remembrance, resilience, and activism. The day serves as a platform to challenge the prevailing narrative of Thanksgiving, advocating for a more accurate and inclusive understanding of history. Thanksgiving, as a cultural icon in the United States, carries with it a mix of myths and truths that shape the nation's collective identity. The whitewashing of Native American history within the Thanksgiving narrative highlights the need for a more nuanced understanding of the complex interactions between European settlers and Native communities. The National Day of Mourning stands as a poignant reminder of the painful legacy of colonization, urging society to confront the uncomfortable truths buried beneath the surface of this widely celebrated holiday. As the nation continues to evolve, acknowledging and rectifying historical inaccuracies, offering land back, and seeking reconciliation is crucial for fostering genuine unity and understanding amongst Americans. I hope this deeper dive into Thanksgiving and the National Day of Mourning sheds light on a subject that's often not taught and discussed in schools or by culture and society in general. Until everyone is free, no one is free. And we, as Americans, need to make reparations and seek reconciliation for the sins of the past. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and God bless.